In 2011, Lord Davies published his report Into Women on Boards, and he set as a target for there to be 25% of females on FTSE 100 boards. This target was exceeded last year, which is great news. However, from a CEO point of view, only 5 women make up the CEOs of FTSE 100 companies, and none of those are in financial services. So has real progress been made or not?
You know, the terrific thing about the Lord Davies report is it got the issue surfaced and out in the open. And it set key objectives as to how many women that we wanted on boards, and virtually doubled the percentage that was there. The next step, though, is the next phase that we're in, and that's what you identify. It's how do we build that pipeline? How do we build more executive women coming through the organizations so that you build up the pipeline that eventually will be non-executive women? And that's the point that we're at right now. So I think the same things will be important. 1, get the issue out. 2, get the data out. 3, set the objectives. And 4, get the commitment of everybody within the universe of that decision-making committed to it. So that means the recruiting firms, that means the chairman, the CEOs, the boards, the executives themselves, to actually bring more diversity up through the ranks and into the top echelons of management.
Because you seem to get, particularly in financial services, quite a good level of females, and not just females, but diversity in organisations, whether it's race or gender or whatever. And it seems to sort of stop as it starts to get up towards the top. So how do people break through that level where they're not getting onto the board, they're not getting those senior positions?
There are a couple of things that need to happen. 1, at the executive level and the board level, you need to basically give a chance. You need to find not 1, not 2, but a group of really top potential talent that maybe doesn't look like the profile of everybody already sitting around the table, but they have potential. And they have potential to be there in the next 5, 7 years on down the line. And then you work at really developing them. And that means to get to an executive role, you need a broad base of experience. You need to be able to understand everything from financials to risk, marketing to product, and everything in between. You need to have run P&Ls. You need to have done things that give you a broad base of experience. Well, the time to do that is at, as you point out, at that mid-level of your career. And that can be very programmed opportunities. Maybe it's not a full job, but it is task force, it's special assignments, a variety of things that executive team can do. Then, when you're in that organization, you need to take a chance. It's tough getting up to be an executive. It's hard work, hard job, hard yards to put in. So you need to take a chance and realize that if somebody's giving you that chance, you are going to, if it's right for you, you're going to take that chance. And it will be out of your comfort zone, probably many times. But if those two things come together, you've got an executive team and a CEO, particularly, that's willing to say, I want to diversify this team and keep it very relevant for 3 to 5 years and down the road, we're going to put in programs into place to do that. And then it takes those people that are down there looking up saying, yep, deep breath, I'm gonna take a chance and go up and do it.
Which brings us on really to a sort of broader subject on the regulator. You know, by their own words, are taking a more invasive and intrusive approach. We're seeing things like senior managers regime, SMR coming out. The danger with that, I guess, with the focus on regulation, rather than having a more diverse board, you could actually narrow the board with people having lots of regulatory experience. I don't know what you're finding in your discussions,
Yeah,
Stephen.
I think that's certainly a risk. With the senior managers regime, it brings a level of accountability and consequence to poor practice, not just from poor conduct of an individual, but from mismanagement as well. And that clearly brings with it the risk that only certain people from a certain sort of background will think, yeah, that's a risk I'm willing to take. And that's something I know Deanna and I, we've talked about in the past. But I think if you are an individual who takes your conduct seriously, who is prepared to invest in getting to know the content, the subject matter, the issues at hand, which, let's be honest, any non-executive that's worth anything is going to need to do, or in whatever organisation they're in, then the standards of conduct that are expected, at the very least from those non-executives who are not chairs of certain committees, should be quite comfortable with. So standards of integrity, standards of customer protection, for example.
I've talked to a number of non-execs and some are saying, well, it's no real difference really. It's the way we should always be behaving, it's what we should be doing. And all they've done is put a few more controls around it, where others do seem to be running scared. I am seeing some people step down because they feel it doesn't play to their strengths or there's far more risk involved. I don't know if you're experiencing that on the boards that you're sitting on, Deanna?
Well, no, I'm not experiencing that directly, but I do think what the regulator has done in terms of having higher standards for committee chairs as well as chairs of the board, give the non-executive director that wants to step into a NED role without those chairmanship requirements, the opportunity to do exactly what Stephen's talking about. You do come in. I mean, it does take time. It does take effort. It does take understanding technical materials and information, and you've got to put the time in to do it. But that doesn't mean you have to have had a career in financial services. If you are a curious individual, has an attention to detail, likes to understand how things come together, and has those standards that Stephen talked about before, I think it can be a great opportunity for somebody coming on to a board as a new NED.
Some firms, I think, are gold plating a little bit, but because of fear. And there's a real responsibility, I think, on compliance directors, for example, and on executives. So what is the board we're trying to run here with the chairman as well? And a real responsibility on people like ourselves, like Huntswood, and like lawyers that are briefing firms, that there are some, I think, that are creating an environment where gold plating is likely to happen that creates a greater level of fear. But what we're talking about here is appropriate levels of integrity and standards of conduct. And there is, a responsibility to brief firms and to brief non-executives in the right way. And I think I'd be very much in that first camp, Phil, which is how much different is it from what we do today? It certainly shouldn't be different to what we would all consider to be appropriate standards today.
You know, here's an opportunity, too, for non-executive directors who are entering into a financial services board for the first time to really think about. So we all think of financial services and we might think of the big names of the big banks that are out there, but there are a myriad of other organizations that one could get involved in. So for example, if you didn't want to be a directly regulated institution, there's a lot of technology providers or other providers that have a financial services part of their business, but are not at that same regulatory height. There are now, as we've all read about, a number of challenger brands and new up and emerging businesses that are coming up that could certainly be a place for somebody to step in where it's not a big, global, complex business and really get their arms around and understand the business as it goes. So I think there's a lot of different entry points that a NED could choose to come in.
So if you were to summarise, Deanna, the sort of three things that an organisation that wanted to be more diverse, what sort of things should it be encouraging? What type of people should it be encouraging in?
You need to embrace the change. You need to put some programs in place to get a number of those diverse candidates up through the ranks. And then you need to give them the opportunities to have those roles so that you can prepare your organisation best for the future.